Are you an HR department of one, trying to figure out how to balance task and strategy while keeping up with changes in regulatory compliance? Do you need a fresh outlook on old topics? Then stop what you're doing, grab your coffee, and get ready to recharge. If you have people, you have problems to solve and things to do. Your host is Brenda, a 20-year human resource professional, ready to explore the HR industry with veterans of business and life with fresh eyes and new ideas. Learn about the rapidly evolving changes in employment law around the country, as well as new tactics to deploy and build engagement in your workforce. If you're looking to implement new practices to make your job easier in HR, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me again today. This is Brenda, and welcome to the Best Practices in HR podcast series. So I am excited to have you guys here. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This show is intended to provide you a significant amount of resources, information, perspective, point of view, and knowledge on how you manage the HR function. And if you are a continued listener, thank you so much, really, for coming back time and time again. I really do appreciate it. Trust me, it doesn't go unnoticed, and I am just excited that you guys are here. So today we're going to talk about, we're going to get some poster updates for you guys. We haven't done that for a little bit. We've got some employment law changes across the nation. We've got an awesome segment today on how to work with your insurance broker, with an actual broker, an individual that I've worked with for several years. She's pretty fantastic and she's smart, and she's going to really kind of go explain to you how you can really maximize your efforts working with your broker. I've got some announcements. We've got, of course, the HR question of the day. And then I'm going to tell you how you can get best practice delivered to your inbox. But before we go forward, I just want to share with you guys that the information available through this podcast is in fact for informational purposes and not for the purpose of providing any kind of legal advice. You should contact your attorney to obtain legal advice with respect to any particular issue. If you do not have an employment attorney, you may contact me and I may be able to refer one to you through our affiliates program and connect you with our friends over at Jackson Lewis. Okay, so exciting stuff here. We haven't done poster updates for a little while, so I am going to give you some updates here. So if you are in the following states, there has been a poster update since either July 1st or August 1st. So Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, Nevada, South Dakota, Arkansas, Missouri, and Virginia. I'm going to repeat those again: Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, Nevada, South Dakota, Arkansas, Missouri, and Virginia. If you are operating in any of those states, these states have had poster updates, and we can give you a contact where you can get those updates. I can even tell you how to get them at a reduced price, but what you won't get is you won't get a lot of threatening or scary marketing material. I can't stand that stuff. So we have partnered up with our friends over at Labor Law Compliance Center. If you go to their website, if you go to bestpractices.org, click on the affiliates link up at the top, scroll down to where you see Labor Law Compliance Center, click that link, and enter the code POSTERS2019 when you go to checkout, and you'll be able to receive 25% off from your purchase. And then that's how you tell them that I sent you. So if you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and reach out to them and get them squared away, and you guys will be up and compliant in no time. Okay, so updates from across the nation. We have seen the Department of Labor release some guidance on non-discretionary bonuses for specifically non-exempt employees. And, bonuses are always one of those things that pops up and people have a lot of questions about them. Can I give them? How do I give them? Can I just give them to anybody? Well, the DOL has now provided some additional information for you guys on what you can do in regards specifically to non-exempt employees, which honestly are going to be between your exempt and your non-exempt employees. Your non-exempt are going to be your higher risk. So USCIS is in the process of actually updating the I-9 form, which has an expiration date that's coming out. So we've seen this before in the past when updates have been made to the I-9 form, and what has happened is that the form itself has an expiration date listed on it. And sometimes USCIS gets hung up and they don't get the update out prior to or around the time of the expiration date. So if that's the case, they are issuing some guidance to go ahead and continue to use the I-9 form that is presently in place right now until the new form is released. So we don't have an exact date on that yet, but it is coming down the pike. So heads up on that one. Over in California, you guys have an update. So under wage order number 5, duty meal periods must be at least 30 minutes in length. So if you guys are working in California and you are managing duty meal periods, make sure that you get some updated information on what exactly you're required under wage order number 5. Over in Colorado, the labor agencies have proposed revisions to the wage rule that includes a bar on vacation forfeiture. Now, this is brand new. We haven't really seen a lot of this. Some states have stipulations in their laws already as to what an employer can do or cannot do with accrued and unused PTO or vacation time. North Carolina is an example of that, where if you don't have it stated in your handbook that you are not going to pay it out upon separation, then you are required to pay it out. So, so this is something new that's coming down the pike as well. Over in Illinois, there is a new law that requires corporations to report diversity on their actual corporate boards. So if you are over in Illinois, definitely check that out as well. In Bernalillo County, New Mexico, there is a new paid leave for any reason law that is taking place. So make sure that you guys are on top of that if you are in that area. And that actually will also involve mandatory PTO trends in that particular location. Over in New York, there is a revision to the employment protections for domestic violence victims, and there is an addition specifically to accommodations and what the obligations are surrounding that. Also, New York strengthens their sexual harassment protections and enacts other new employment laws. So again, you know, we saw midterm action coming down and it is currently in place. So if you guys are in those areas, please make sure that you get either with your current employment attorney for those updates, or you work with your local Department of Workforce and find out what it is that you need to do.
Okay, folks, so I am here with Kim Setzer from Towne Benefits out in Virginia Beach. She is a benefits broker, somebody that I've worked with for quite a while. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for. We have been through fire together. and
made it out alive.
I know we made it out alive, and she's an awesome lady. So, Kim, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Great, Brenda. Thank you very much.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be working with you again, and I'm very excited to see you and your new endeavors, and look forward to working together.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. I know we got a new client together, so we're excited. We're like, we're back in the saddle again together. They won't know what hit them.
Exactly. They will be well taken care of for sure.
Right. Exactly. That is so funny. So, folks, this is the first of a 2-part series because we are getting into what is kind of known as benefit season. And typically most businesses start and stop a plan at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So this is literally Kim's busy time because she's actually out there doing a lot of negotiations. She's trying to get rates and things like that. We're going to talk about some of this stuff. But so this episode, we're going to talk about how to work with your insurance broker. We're going to give you some tricks to the trade. But then the next episode, which you have to stay tuned, is we're going to actually talk about benefits renewal planning. And, she and I have gone through some things together. We've definitely had our share of hard lessons along the way, but it is, gained us a lot of knowledge and has definitely gained us quite a bit of experience. So as we're progressing together on a project, moving forward, it gives us an opportunity to look back and think through of like, okay, what we did, what we didn't do, and get an opportunity to share the important things with you guys to help you become more effective in your efforts. So you get to learn from our adventures, so to speak. So a lot of people, Kim, don't, especially in the small business arena, and unless they have been in the benefits administration role, which I'll be honest with you guys, my first 15 years of being in HR, I didn't want to have anything to do with benefits. I actually completely pushed it off as much as I possibly can until I got to a point where I had to understand this stuff. And it was, some of it was hard lesson, but it really wasn't that difficult at the same time. So what exactly does a broker do for a business?
So, well, I will have to tell you, your comment about people pushing it off and not wanting to work with benefits is a common problem, and that's why I have a job.
Yes,
so I'm very happy about that, too. So what a broker does is a broker is your trusted advisor in the benefit arena. So our basic job is to act on behalf of our clients, which are employers, and advise on the best plan and cost options for both employee and employer. Mm-hmm. So we watch out. There's a difference between an insurance broker and an insurance agent. An insurance agent is, say, a State Farm agent, an Allstate agent, and they typically represent one carrier. I'm an insurance broker, which means that I'm appointed with several carriers, and it's my due diligence to go out to each of these carriers and come back to my client with the best solution. And so that's what makes us different than just an insurance agent. And we do this for all lines of coverage. So we do it for medical, dental, vision, life, disability, a number of different things. So very enjoyable.
Got it.
One of the other things that we do on behalf of our client is, as I just mentioned, we do go out and we solicit proposals from multiple carriers. And then once we get all those back, we take a look at them and we negotiate not only with the carrier that we got the proposal from, but in between carriers. So if the incumbent carrier comes back with maybe a 10% renewal increase and another carrier comes back with maybe a 3% increase, we can go back to that incumbent carrier and say, hey, this group may switch just because they're receiving a very similar plan for less money, which is not only going to help their bottom line, but it's also going to help out their employees. So we like to, I kind of, me, I like to get in the middle. I like to, go back and forth and do that negotiation on behalf of my client, and I enjoy that. One of the other things that we provide, with the passing of the Affordable Care Act, compliance and legislation has become a very big deal. I'm actually part of, I'm an officer in the Eastern Virginia Health Underwriters Association, or VAHU, and this is a group that gets together, and we actually went to Richmond. We go to Richmond every year. We go to D.C. every year, and there's actually a national conference. But I had the opportunity to go to Richmond and lobby on behalf of my beliefs. So one of them was an HSA, was legislation that had to do with an HSA, which was passed, and then the other one had to do with sole proprietors as an employer. So I also like to get involved in the legislative side of the business. I really enjoy that. I mean, you have all of these acronyms: ERISA, ACA, COBRA, FSA, STD. You name it. There's a lot of different things that go on behind a benefit plan, and there has to be that foundation before you can start deducting, premiums or actually have a plan. So my company, Towne Benefits, actually has all of those departments housed under one roof. So it's very easy for us to go across the hallway or make a phone call to get all of this compliance done.
Now, I want to point something out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to point something out. So what you're talking about is actually pretty crucial. And in my experience, not all brokers have what you guys have. And so some brokers will have resources that they can tap into where they can do somewhat of what you guys do, but a good broker will have exactly what Kim is actually describing. They'll have individuals to where in their own infrastructure, they offer a suite of services versus outsourcing these services to third-party administrators so that they are taken care of. So there's a very distinct difference in this industry when you're getting into benefits. And if you guys are shopping for a broker, that's a really important question to ask. And that would be, how do you handle compliance? And how do you handle updates? Now, some brokers will tell you that, well, we have an HRIS system that we provide, and it comes out of pocket. And I know, Kim, you've heard of these companies too. And then they say, but we'll charge you for, COBRA administration when you get to the required number of people. But they won't necessarily tell you if there's state continuation as well. So there's a lot of little pieces that add up to a very big picture with a broker. But one question to always ask your broker is this suite of services between ERISA, ACA, COBRA, FSA, putting together your POP 125, putting together your SPDs, and even an HRA or HSA. The question is, how do you as a brokerage firm manage these things? That is a very critical question. If they start telling you, similar to what Kim was saying, that we have these in-house, we have individuals, I can, call anybody in my office or walk down the hall, versus, well, we have a third-party administrator that does this. And the reason why I'm calling this out is that from an HR standpoint is that it's one thing to have a direct relationship. Like if Kim and I are working on something together, I can call Kim and say, hey, listen, I need this. And she's the intermediary in her company to help me either to the person or get what I need and get back to me as the employer. If you have a company and they have a third-party administrator and they're processing claims or they're helping you to do something, which some of these guys do, now you've got an entire different group of people that are outside of the span of control of the broker, and everybody's now waiting on somebody else. So it can get a little complicated.
Absolutely. So it is nice that we do have all of that housed under one roof. And, again, with the passing of the Affordable Care Act, compliance has become such a large part of what we do. We're not, here's your renewal, do you want to renew or not? No. There are carrier changes, there are legislative changes, different, compliance, and we actually have a vice president of compliance that does just that. She is well-versed in the Affordable Care Act and just about anything else, and she's very helpful. So there are obviously things that I don't know, and so it's nice to have a teammate and, a coworker that I can go to, I can instant message, call, or walk downstairs and get that information. I don't have to call out of state. I don't have to call a third party. It's all right here.
Yeah. And not to mention what we're talking about here, just in compliance and legislative updates, these things, this is just scratching the surface. There's 15 different notifications that have to actually be part of a benefits package that goes out to the employees or made available. That includes things like, women in cancer. I mean, it's a litany of these things.
It is. And one of the benefits that we offer is we build a website specifically for each client. All of their benefit information is out there, whether it's medical, dental, vision. But we also have a compliance section that allows employers to post this, share this information with everyone, and there is an electronic signature. So if for some reason they were to get audited, they can pull a report from our system and show exactly who is logged in, and it's time-stamped.
Right.
So that makes it very convenient in case, like I said, if there was an audit. But all of the information is right there. It's one-stop shopping. And then from, even from here, you can go to online enrollment. So we try to make it easy because employers are busy doing what they do. And open enrollment is a crazy busy time of year. And so we like to minimize the time that employees have taken out of their day or on their weekends or in the evening to go through the open enrollment process. But it is the one time of year we're able to get in front of groups and let them know that this information is out there and where to find it exactly.
Right, exactly. So there's also other types of compliance pieces that need to go in place. So one of the things that Kim was kind of going in that direction with that didn't really call it out yet, which I'm going to do instead, is that you also have to get a sign-off from employees on how they prefer to receive their benefits and notifications. And so it's one of two options. Most brokers should have this notification, but you actually have to ask for it. It's not something that I've seen voluntarily provided. It's kind of one of those things, tricks to the trade, that you have to know about this. And then if you are, moving everything to a digital format, that's great. But you also have to make sure that you understand what your state requires for a POP 125, which is the pre-tax document, if it's required for a particular state. So if you don't know to ask these kinds of questions, then, pick up the phone and call, because, we can definitely help you get kind of some alignment as to what it is. If you've never done anything like this before, or if you've been doing it and none of these things ring a bell, that's part of the reason why we're doing this episode. And we're doing this in a two-part format, because the compliance side of this is very big. And, some people would probably say, well, HR is always risk adverse. Well, we're not risk adverse. We're just in preparation for it. We're preparing for it all the time, because our business is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something's going to, go sideways. So, so your broker should be an individual that you can count on to help you make sure that you're meeting compliance. And if they're not, you could probably find someone better. We'll just put it that way. But really, truly, I mean, you and I have been doing this for a while now, that, it really, truly is a partnership. I mean, you and I have a seat at the table together.
Right. As I mentioned, we want to be the trusted advisor. We want to be able to be the person that an employer goes to, or you go to say, all right, do I have a Section 125 in place? Do I have all of I need this particular document, where do I find it? And I simply give them, a website, a login, and a password, and it's right there. And they're like, oh, I forgot it was there. Right. And it's there the whole time, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Anytime someone needs it, it's there, which makes, it takes a lot of the weight of compliance off the employer when they know that we have their back and that it's all posted out there for them.
Right. So there's a lot to the compliance side on it. I'm really glad that, you gave this a shout out on this. And, it's a big piece of what benefits administration is about. So, all right, so let's move on. So what are some of the other things that brokers do for employers, or should be doing for employers?
So one of the things that gives me joy in my job is to educate employees. And sometimes I see them nodding their head like they're getting it. Other times I see them nodding off. They're asleep. But, when I see an employee nodding their head like, oh, that's what the in-network out-of-pocket maximum means, that gives me joy in my job. And so, again, it's the one time of year we're typically able to get in front of employees, whether it's through a webinar or an in-person presentation, to convey those benefits in an easy to understand format. And it's always meeting the employees year to year and being able to do that. It also allows me, they're able to see a face, hear a voice, and know that as a broker, I act as a mediary between the employee and the carrier for any claims issues. So if for some reason someone gets a claim, in fact, I just had a situation where one of the employees of the company, they were in the British Virgin Islands and had to be medevac back to the United States for treatment. And one of the local carriers just completely took care of that claim. They paid every bit of it. But it was very easy. It was an out-of-network claim. They had an HMO. Of course, emergencies are covered out-of-network on an HMO plan or any plan, as if they were in-network. And so I was able to get that resolved, and they were extremely grateful that they had me to go to. They were dealing with some other things in their family. And so to be able to give that to me and, I be able to come back to them with answers is really a nice thing to have. And you get to know employees on a more personal level when you have that. Mm-hmm. And then on the as far as intermediary is concerned, I'm also act as I get to be use my accounting background and help on the billing issues. And so, not everyone's perfect. Billing, is kind of a crazy process, but And the HRIS systems are fantastic, but the carriers sometimes, timing is always an issue because carriers typically bill a month in advance. And so if there's a billing issue, then I can always go back to the carrier on behalf of the employer and say, hey, there's an issue with this, and get that resolved on behalf of the employer, because they don't want to mess with that. It's just, something else that they have to do that's taking them away from their day-to-day job.
Right. So this show is called Best Practices in Human Resources, and I'm going to throw out two of them right now. So I'm going to take a step back to Kim when we talked about being an advocate on behalf of the employees for claim resolution. I have used Kim on a number of these issues in the past. I thought she was going to fire me as a client at one point. But what's important to remember is that although the broker is assisting with that, at the end of the day, the employer still owns the problem. So if the employer is directing all of their employees to only talk to the broker and not involve human resources if it's a situation that gets out of hand, then it opens up the employer for potential risk, especially if it's inadvertently starting to trip on an individual's protected rights. So, best practice is something that I've maintained with Kim for a long time, and that is the employee would come to us, we would go to Kim, and we would use Kim as that same intermediary, but there was a direct point of contact only that existed between myself as the HR practitioner and my insurance broker, then to the actual plan people themselves. So,
right.
And especially the bigger you get, it's nice to have that service that they can go do these things, and the broker can help you enroll people, and they can help you set up systems where that's done automatically. Those things are all wonderful. But at the end of the day, if there's a problem, you're still the plan administrator, which means that you own it. And if you're not paying attention to what's going on and something gets out of control, and it could be no fault of anybody, you want to make sure that your company is not inadvertently in the way or in the line of fire of compliance violations. If it's a broker that is not really stepping up to the plate, which there are some out there that are like this, that action could actually put you in a pretty bad situation. I can tell you Towne doesn't do that. They're pretty good about this stuff. And then the other thing is that when you're dealing with billing and invoices, this is Brenda's tip of the day here. Whatever you do, it gets a little weird when you've got employees coming on the plan, coming off the plan. If you've got an individual that terminates, I just gave counsel the other day to somebody, and they're like, well, this employee, just left the company, and, I'm going to withhold partial payment because we shouldn't be paying for that person on the next month invoice. And I'm like, don't do that. Make sure that you pay the invoice in full, and then wait till the following month, because the insurance carrier will go ahead and make an adjustment, and there'll be a credit issued to your account. Now, the reason why I say that is that the carrier expects full payment at the beginning, whenever the invoice is due, okay? Because usually it's at the beginning of the month. If it is short, you actually risk your policy closing down, and you can't get it back again. You'll have to go through the whole process all over again. Conversely,
it's a nightmare. Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah, it's bad. So don't do that, right? Go ahead and chase the money, chase the dragon that way, but don't short the invoice thinking that, the insurance company will just make the adjustment. Let the insurance company issue the credit memo inside the following invoice and make that adjustment, okay? So then that way you're not at risk of losing your policy. The other piece of it is that you also want to make sure that your invoices are being paid on time. And this is a conversation that Kim and I recently just had about another organization, is that if there's a consistency to where invoices are not paid in a timely manner and they're constantly late, when it comes time for renewal, they may not want to quote you. So that's kind of a bad thing,
if you consistently pay it late, eventually there's going to come a time where they cancel your policy altogether, right. And then you're going to have to pay a fee to get it reinstated. Letters are going to go to the employees letting them know that their policy has been canceled, and then that's just going to create a lot of disruption and panic at the office. You do not want that to happen.
No, that is definitely a whiskey-filled day when those things take place. Oh, my gosh. So those are the things that a broker can do for employers. Now let's talk about what can employers do to work together with their broker for their plans and for the things that they want to get accomplished. What can employers do to assist their brokers?
One of the things I think that I don't think employers actually understand what brokers do altogether. And there are
part of the reason you're here.
Exactly. So behind the curtain where the wizard is working, what I try to do with my clients is come up with a timeline. And that's, year round, not just at open enrollment or renewal or, keep a calendar going perpetually. Because there's always something going on. So there's CMS disclosure notices. There's, all kinds of things throughout the year. It could be you have a Form 5500 that needs to be completed if you have more than 100 employees, things like that.
Schedule D coming up here soon.
Yes, absolutely. So, make a timeline and try to stick to it. Just because there are so many, we're working backwards from the anniversary date of the renewal. And so we're constantly having to meet specific, timestamps just so that we can get things done. So a couple of things that go on in the background that employers most likely don't see is that we submit different RFPs to the carriers, and, it usually takes them anywhere from 5 to 10 business days for them to get back to us. So that's, a good 2 weeks there from the time that we submit the proposals and they actually send it back to us. Well, then,
so just so they know, and so if they've never done this before, an RFP is a request for proposal.
A request for proposal, exactly. Right. And that request for proposal, it depends on how many lines of business the group has. It could be that they have life, dental, vision, and medical, and so that means multiple RFPs are going out to multiple carriers. So it does take a while for them to come in and, and us to analyze them. So we've got to get them all in. We put them in a spreadsheet. And then I typically take a look, especially on the life and disability plans, get into the details of the proposal and then usually pick the top 3 to present to the client. So, and that takes some time, once you analyze all of that, because it is very time consuming, especially on the life and disability part, to go into all of the details on those proposals. So once we get all of that together, we can go back and either meet with the employer at that time to go over the exhibits or the analysis. And then once we do that, we go back and we can go back to the carriers and say, either before or after the meeting with the employer, to be quite honest. Again, I had referenced earlier about the medical carrier that gave us a 10% increase, the incumbent, and then another carrier gave us a 3% increase. Well, I'm going to go back to that incumbent carrier and say, look, here's your opportunity. They've been with this particular carrier for, 5, 10 years, and give them the opportunity. Number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, I've built very good relationships with these carriers, and they respect me, I respect them, and I certainly want to give them the opportunity to go back to their underwriters to see if they want to keep the business. So again, then we prepare those exhibits. And when I bring a renewal to an employer, it's not just a spreadsheet and I go here. There are a number of things included in a renewal exhibit, and one of them are carrier changes. There are always prescription drug changes. There are different changes in the copays and coinsurance for the drugs. The out-of-pocket maximums are indexed every year, so we have to let employers know what those are. A lot of different carrier changes, network changes, so many different things that the carriers change every year that I always like to go over first, because then you start getting into the details of the rates and the plans, and, then you kind of lose that on the carrier side. So then I go through the analysis for each line of coverage. We review those. We, of course, always have alternate options, not only within the incumbent carrier, but with other carriers. one of the most important things that I like to talk about in a renewal meeting and at open enrollment are the value-added benefits. Each carrier has a nurse line that's either 8 to 5 or 24/7, where employees can call and speak to a nurse at no charge. Well, that's a really nice benefit. I've used it many times myself, having a son. That many occasions having a son, but that's very, very helpful, being able to have access to a nurse at practically any time, and it doesn't cost the employee anything.
Right.
So that's a really nice benefit to have. And then you have virtual telemedicine. You have treatment cost estimators, and that's really helpful for plans that have coinsurance, especially for those plans that have a HSA or an HRA paired with them. Of course, we have legislative changes every year, especially on the large group side. You've got affordability guidelines that employers have to meet. And then, of course, there are voluntary benefits. Employers are always asking, what can I do to expand my benefit portfolio and it won't cost me anything? I get that question more often than you think, and there are a number of benefits that you can add that don't ask for money out of the employer's pocket. So you have legal resources, you have pet insurance, you have identity theft protection, and then a number of, policies, accident coverage, whole life, cancer, hospital, a lot of different things that you can add. And then again, we review all of that. The employer's usually exhausted by the time we get done with that.
The eyes are swirling in different directions at the same time.
Exactly. Try to do it early in the morning before they get too exhausted, early in the week. And,
right.
Or just have it done over happy hour. That could work too. But, and then you go back, then the whole negotiation process starts again. What does the employer really want to do once they've taken a look at, this entire packet, and carriers like to bundle products. So if you had, one carrier for dental and you decide you want to offer life and disability, well, several carriers now offer all three, and they'll give discounts, if you bundle it together. So there's a lot of that going on. So that's a big part.
It is. So something I want to throw in here. So a lot of what we're talking about, there's 3 different ways to insure your company. So there's a fully insured, partially insured, and self-insured plans. And what we are really focusing in on, especially in this show, is the fully insured side of the house. Mm-hmm. When it comes to doing partially insured and self-insured, there's a tremendous amount of analysis that has to go into this. And there should be a decent amount of analysis that goes into fully insured. So, when you're looking at when you're going through the negotiation process, and like Kim mentioned, they do like to bundle things together, you're really going to have to critically think about what all of these things mean and how it is going to impact your employees. And if you're a small organization that is in small market, well, everybody is going to be age banded, which means that the older you are, the more insurance, the cost of the insurance goes up per plan, meaning per person, per member, per individual. So it costs a lot more to insure an individual at 45 than it does an individual at 25. Sometimes a lot more than what you think. And and it continues to go up. But then when you get into a large market, when you're closer to that 100 employee mark, and that threshold, may shift to the left a little bit depending upon where you are and what the carriers are saying. But once you get into that size market, the age banding goes away, and it's a unilateral cost. It's the same cost for everybody. So one of the things that I've seen is that when you transition from an age banded plan to a large plan to where everybody's that same number, you're really going to want to take a look at your workforce and find out who's going to be negatively impacted by that. And it's usually going to be the individuals who are younger that are going to have to step up and pay more. So, so there's some numeric values that you have to take a look at. Conversely, you're also going to be able to really make the days of those of us who are older because our benefit costs are going to shrink considerably, right? So, there's some impact there that's going to exist as well. When you're analyzing, should I go fully insured or should I go self-insured? Well, you know what? When you're at that 300, 350, 400 mark, you may save a little bit, maybe under the self-insured plan, but really you're going to wind up saving a lot more with a much larger populace doing self-insured. But self-insured also comes with a significantly larger amount of compliance issues that you have to be well educated on. So it's not like you can just make the snap decision. Oh, wow. Decision. And
it's really that hard to make.
Come out. I know. It is not going to come out. It's not like you can just snap your fingers and then bounce easily from one to the other. And once you are self-insured, to get back into a fully insured plan is also very challenging as well. And so this is one of those things that when it comes to an employer, this is a time suck, but it's an important one because there's so much to look at. And if you're just looking at the numbers and you don't fully understand how the out-of-pocket expenses impact your employees and if that's something that's financially feasible and you're just making quick and snap decisions, guarantee you your competitors will probably have something different, or your employees may look for other plans, businesses that have plans that are better, especially if they're paying a lot of money for insurance programs. So that's just a little nugget to keep inside your hat. She and I have talked about this a lot. And then there are things that you can do in the process, and we learned not too long ago, that you can request. So you can change your percentages. You can put in requests to adjust the out-of-pocket expenditures. Can those amounts go up or down? And, you'll actually see differences in the actual rates come back. But you don't want to spend a lot of time doing this because Kim's favorite phrase is
sharpen your pencil.
There you go. There it is. But you know what? If you keep pushing your brokers like, okay, well, I want this and I want this. First off, it takes a lot because it's not the plan representative that's making these numbers happen. It's the analysts behind the scenes. And so when you get into this time of year, when all of these things are starting to go on, and not the plan administrators, the plan representatives are putting in multiple requests, at some point in time, the analysts are going to shut them off and say, no, we're not reevaluating this. This is what it is. This is what
the underwriters some of the carriers have come to us and said, our underwriters will underwrite one time.
Right.
So this is your chance. What do you want? I need it all up front, and then I'll go to bat for you and get you the best rate. But I'm doing this one time.
Yep.
And and that's, exactly.
Yep. So, there is room on the table. And the other thing is that if you think that you can go to another broker because the broker that you're currently talking to isn't able to get you the rate, well, guess what? That's not going to happen either because your agent of record is the one that has full access to negotiate for you on your behalf. The only thing that another brokerage firm can do is submit a request. They'll get the same information. They can't negotiate, even though they may try and get other carriers involved, but they're going to try and put a different angle and different spin on it. Mm-hmm. So, it's not like you're buying a car where you're looking at a black Toyota that is this year, and then you're going somewhere else to look for a black Toyota of the same year, where you can negotiate prices and rates. This industry does not work that way. Your agent of record has full disclosure of every piece of activity that you've got going on because they are the agent on record with that carrier. So if you have a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, another competing broker can't go in and negotiate on your behalf because there's an agent on record already. Did I explain that right?
You did.
Yay,
excellent.
I get a gold star for that one.
You do.
Excellent. So if you're wanting to put stuff out to shop, that's fine. You can. Just understand you're not going to get a better rate from the same carrier. You're going to get that same rate. So they're going to try and shop a different carrier and try and compete with what your broker on record or your agent on record has actually got in hand.
And if you're in the 1 to 50 market, if you have fewer than 50 employees, the rate is the rate is the rate.
Yep.
So there's no negotiating because of the Affordable Care Act.
Exactly. And no broker in their right mind would even attempt to actually provide you in a quote of a plan that is not ACA compliant.
Right.
I don't even think that's possible.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're under 50, there are carriers that will do level funding, and that you could potentially negotiate with. But if it's just a straight up ACA plan, those rates are fixed.
Right. Okay. So what else? So good call outs there. So what else can employers do that help make the relationship go real well and the efforts between them and the broker? What else?
So one of the things that I always get pushback on every year is a census. I need a census to shop.
Because it's so much fun to do.
Oh, yeah. And some employers, depending on, what type of payroll system they have, it's easy to pull. It's very easy to pull a census. I need this information. And it's their age, their date of birth, their gender, their salary, their job title, their zip code, and their dependents. Mm-hmm. Especially on medical plans, dental and vision, especially medical, dependents make up a lot of claims. And so carriers are starting to go down to a dependent level census so that they know exactly who is on the plan. They want to know who's currently insured. We also need to know who is eligible. So we ask for all eligible employees. So, for example, some carriers, I can go in and pull a census, but it's only the people who are currently enrolled. There are employers, I would say just about every employer probably has employees who are on their spouse's plan. They could, in this area in Hampton Roads, we have a lot of employers that have employees on TRICARE. So there are a number of different things that, a lot of people that are eligible but are not enrolled in the plan. So we have to make sure that we clarify all eligible employees.
And that can also mean if somebody is on Medicare, is covered under Medicare, they're still eligible. So just because they may be enrolled in a Medicare plan doesn't mean that you can pull that information off or not have that submitted as part of the quote, because that's a violation right there.
That's illegal.
Yes,
you cannot incent people to come off of the group plan and join Medicare.
Correct.
So that's not a good idea.
No, not at all. And it's interesting because, oddly enough, I had that conversation just the other day with somebody. So, and you know what? There's no harm, no foul in asking about that stuff because, everybody's trying to find a way to make this the smoothest, easiest, and cost-effective process because, let's face it, payroll and benefits are usually interchangeable between the first and the second line on any expenditure report in a company.
Exactly.
We are the most, when I say HR doesn't contribute, we take money. That's what we do. We're really good at it. We're great at spending it. We don't bring it in, we spend it. But
exactly.
But so that means that, through some hard work, you definitely want to make sure that you're, conducting the appropriate analysis.
Right. Absolutely. And that, for example, for shopping life and disability, we are going to ask for salary information. And a lot of employers don't like to give that information. So fine, don't include, a name. Carriers don't need to know names. But we do need salary information because if you have a life insurance policy that's 3 times your salary, they try to come up with, a maximum. You want to get the most, money for, bang for your buck, basically. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to fit in, how much is the highest paid person? Are we able to get them 3 times their salary, or are we capped at, say, $300,000? We're going to need to know that information. We don't need to know who makes what, but the carriers need to know how much that range is. And the same thing for disability. If most short-term and long-term disability plans are 60% of your income, well, what is that income? We need to know, how much people make so that we can get the most, ask for the most money so that, if someone does go out on disability, that they can pay their bills.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very, very important part of it, and job title. So when it comes to, especially disability, they want to know job titles. What do these people do? Because insurance is all about risk, and they want to make sure that they, underwrite the rate based on the risk of the group. So that's a very important thing.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that employers can do to help this process and really be part of it? To help us on the back end, if renewal decisions, a lot of times people put this decision off and put it off because it's a lot of money, they don't want to deal with it. But there are a lot of things that have to go on once that decision is made. So there's the build up to actually having the meeting with the employer, the renewal meeting to go over everything, and then once that decision is made, then we hit the ground running again. So it's really a two-part process. Mm-hmm. So once that decision is made, it could be that the group has an online enrollment platform. It could be our own TFA Edge. It could be Employee Navigator. It could be PlanSource. It could be a number of online enrollment systems that we actually offer at no charge. That's my little commercial. But, but those do have to be updated. Some of those platforms take more time than others, but we have to set up everything on the back end. So we could potentially be setting up new plans, new employer contributions, could be a new payroll cycle, could be a new class. It could have have one group that has 4 different classes. They all get paid. Their employer contribution is different. So you have to go in and make sure that all of that is done on the back end. Right.
One of the other things that we do for our group, each group has their own customized website. So you may not have an online enrollment system, but you do have a website that has all of your plan information, all of those compliance notices, links to the carriers, plan documents. All of that information is out there. In fact, we can even, there's a section that says company documents. So we could put your employee handbook out there. We can put your PTO request out there. We can put your holiday schedule out there. So we like to make that one-stop shopping for all of our groups. But, we do have to update those benefits. Of course, if you're over 20 or more employees, you have a COBRA administrator. That COBRA administrator is going to need the information so that those members who are on COBRA have the same opportunity to enroll just as an active employee does. So whether it's our company Beneflex that does the COBRA administration or if it's a third party, we need to be able to communicate those rates in a timely manner to that administrator so that those employees have the option to enroll.
Yeah. And something else, too, that came across my mind while I was listening to you is that, not everybody, it'd be great if the entire United States came and called you. It probably wouldn't. But that, Kim was talking about the different types of technology that companies can utilize through their broker or may be offered to where open enrollment is now digital rather than paper manual stuff, right? But there's one other piece that's part of this process is that when a company determines that they want to use electronic open enrollment, if it's a brokerage firm that has what's called EDI, which is an electronic data interface, meaning that software connects with the carrier, that also takes time to set up and test as well to make sure that the information is being transferred to the carrier receives it, acknowledges it, and sends the information back to, whoever that database administrator is for that particular software to make sure that that connectivity is working. So that's also another piece to this, because if your open enrollment or if your new employee enrollment is botched, holy cow, you've got a lot of backpedaling to do to fix that. And most insurance companies won't balk at trying to solve a late enrollment, especially if it was a connectivity issue. But the bigger question is, why would you even want to go through that? So, so that's another piece to this as well.
Exactly. It's really crazy, but yeah, it's very, very important that all of that is done on the front end, right? So that on the back end, when we transmit that information to the carriers, that it is done correctly the first time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and one of the other things, the big preparation is for meetings. So once you've gone through this entire process, how do you convey this information to your employees? Do you want to do it in person? Do you want to do it by webinar? So typically either way, there's an open enrollment presentation that's involved. So we discuss the plan changes, we go through all the plans, all the value added, and what you need to do for open enrollment. So there's that presentation that has to be updated. And then, we hope that most of our groups go through some type of online enrollment. But if not, we have a lot of small groups that, maybe 5, 10, 20 employees. And they want to have a meeting in person, and we do the paper route, which is completely fine. But there are packets that have, there's material that has to be printed and then placed in the packets. And I like to customize them, so we make sure that, we're able to do that for our group. And because this is the one time of year that we can get in front of them and let them know about their benefits. And then it quickly happens, 2-3 months down the road. Oh, I remember in the open enrollment meeting you said this, and I don't remember exactly what you said. Well, here we go. Let's talk about it, and let me help you walk through it. So a lot of times this information doesn't mean anything to anyone until they actually have to use the plan. Mm-hmm. So, but it is interesting. Like I said, I go back to the nodders. Are they nodding off because they're asleep, or are they nodding off because they get it? I get both.
Yeah. And I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to throw this one out on the table. It's also important to have your employees submit their forms on time. And that means that if you're a small company, it's easier to manage. If you're a larger company, like some of these larger companies, they'll be like, hey, you didn't submit it on time. Too bad, says that, because they have to draw that line in the sand. Smaller companies tend to be like, okay, well, you missed it by a day. We'll get it in. Well, that's up to you. It's not necessarily fair to the employees. Because, we live in a world of what you do for one, you do for all kind of a thing. So you want to be careful about that because you don't want any disparity there. But, tell them why it's important for a broker to get forms online. Do it now. That was a little bossy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Go get them, Kim.
But no, it's, the carriers have a lot of things to do on their end before ID cards go out. So if we're implementing new coverage or we're moving to a new carrier, there's a lot of things that the carrier has to do on the back end. They have to set up the shell of a company, and then underneath that shell, they have to put all of the employee information. So they need, a good at least 15 to 30 days on them to be able to do that. The absolute deadline we have is 15 days before the first of the month of the effective date. So, for example, for September 1st, and a September 1st effective date, our last day to submit everything was August 15th. Well, like I said, that's why that timeline is so important, because we're always, going backwards, having to work backwards towards the anniversary date of the plan. So getting all of that paperwork together, whether it is, through an HRIS system or paper, we have to get that done very, very quickly. Or, just plan ahead. And, hopefully we have enough time to plan ahead. That's why it's so important to get that renewal decision in a timely manner so that we have enough time to prep and get in front of those employees so that they have enough time to make an educated decision, either by themselves or, at home with their spouse and their family, so that they can, make that budgetary decision as to what is best for them. Because bottom line, by the first of the month, everybody's got to have their ID card. They panic if they don't. I'm not covered. I don't have my ID card.
My gosh, yes. And, and my favorite is that when when you're able to negotiate a 2-year rate, and when you get to open enrollment, ID cards are the one thing that people will lose their brain on. They will not remember what ones they are supposed to have, what they did with the ones that they do have. They won't remember that the ones that you said hang on to, don't destroy, because they're good for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I have had more ID card requests than anything else in my entire HR career.
Exactly. And the carriers all have mobile apps these days, so it's absolutely wonderful. You don't have to, have a fat wallet and carry around your ID cards. And, but that's a very big, large number of phone calls that I receive every year I need my ID card.
Yeah, or why isn't my daughter's name on my ID card? Well, it's because you're in a different plan, which doesn't require that. Your daughter's in the plan. They can still file the claim, and ID cards are just part of the game.
Exactly. And then some carriers get a little happy and they send them out a month or so in advance. And then, if the decision is made later and the plan changes, they get 2 ID cards and they're like,
that's right.
Which one do I use? Which one do I use? So that's always fun too.
Yeah. So ID cards, just be ready for ID cards because it's always an adventure. It just is what it is.
ID bingo.
ID bingo. There you go. That's funny. Well, cool. Well, listen, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. And even though they're gonna hear from you in a week, if anybody would like to get in touch with you, how can people find you?
They can find me. They can email me at kimsetzer@townebenefits.com. That's KIM, S as in Sam, ETZER, at Towne with an E, benefits.com, or call me directly in my office at 757-390-2051.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining. This has just been fantastic.
Thank you, Brenda.
And we will talk to you in a week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Take care.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. And today I want to give a shout out to Greg, who's been listening and making some comments on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. You're a regular, you're awesome. And just want to take a moment and say thank you very much for always tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Today I want to do a spotlight real quick on one of our affiliates, Legal Resources. Legal Resources is a really awesome benefit that you can actually provide for your employees. You can work to either have it being an employee or an employer provided benefit, and it allows your employees the opportunity to go ahead and seek out legal advice under a particular plan with certain types of pricing available and discounts, specifically for things like trust planning, drafting a will, and other, specific legal requirements. And you guys can check out Legal Resources by clicking on over to bestpractices.work, the website. Click on the affiliates link, scroll down till you see Legal Resources, and link on over. And if you want a formal introduction, by all means, reach out to me and I'll be happy to go ahead and help you guys shake some hands. We've got workshops coming up September, October, November, and December. This is a great opportunity to get set up for these. We've got My Employee Smokes Pot. This is the second workshop in the month of September, coming up September 10th. Now, this one is both live and virtual. So the live version, though, you have to be present for it. You will have an opportunity to do a quick meet and greet with U.S. Navy SEAL Jason Redman. Definitely check out his work. Jason, short version, was a career Navy SEAL who actually wound up taking a round in the face on an op and lost his nose, lost a chunk of his arm as well. And he's a pretty awesome guy. He's got an incredible message. And it's going to be a great opportunity to go ahead and shake hands with him. Hiring for talent for employers and workshop. We've got a couple opportunities in October coming up. We've also got in November kicking off a successful New Year. And we also have in December helping grieving employees through the holidays. That's going to be a pretty strong workshop because just about every employer has at least one or a small handful of those individuals. So you can register for these events today at bestpractices.work by clicking on the events link, and then just click right on over into each segment and you'll be able to go ahead and register for the event. Now, we have new courses that are coming out. They're not quite ready yet for release, but on the HR University by Best Practices currently we have Understanding Generation Z, which is the newest course that was released. We have Hiring Talent for Employers, and then we also have an overview of the American Disabilities Act for employers. Now, when we release a new course, there is a 5 for 50 special, that basically means that it's 50% off for the first 5 days after the course is released. The new course discount will expire, but you are able to take advantage of the special offering by clicking on the HR University at the top of the bestpractices.work website and logging in and taking the much needed information. So what's going to be coming down is that we're going to be releasing individual courses, and then we're also going to be releasing boot camp bundles as well. We're focusing in on general HR compliance in 3 different segments, or excuse me, 2 different segments. No, 3 different segments. I did say it right. 3 segments. And then we're also doing government contracting as well. So that's going to be a different boot camp segment. But we're going to keep you tuned in when those things are coming up. And then also 2 books that are available for you guys. The Holy Cow, I Have to Complete an I-9 book. And then Holy Cow, I Have to Talk to My Boss. You guys can also go ahead and purchase those books both online at the website, or you can jump onto Amazon and grab them over there as well. So email me your HR questions. This is pretty awesome stuff. I love answering these questions. I get really good ones. I've got another really good one for you guys today. But you can go ahead, jump on the website, click on the podcast link from the menu, and down towards the bottom of the podcast is a submission form for you to actually post your question, which I may read and answer on an upcoming episode. Not to mention, when you sign up for best practices and have those things delivered to your inbox, those best practices, you get a little free gift from me as well. So today's question is, do employers actually call your references when applying for a job? I again took a question from the perspective of an employee, because these are things that they look for. Candidates and employees ask these questions all the time. And the answer is this. So if you're applying for a larger corporation, typically they have a background program in place, and that does involve looking up prior contacts as well, prior references, all right? Either work references or personal references, or actually not personal, but professional references, or whatever reference that's given. That team tends to roll with that completely. Now, the other piece of it is that if it's a small business, I think it's a hit and miss. And I say that with greatest intention, that usually it's more of a miss than it is a hit. And the reason why that is because most small businesses either don't understand the value of doing and checking references, or they don't understand the importance of it. And it takes a lot of time sometimes, because you do have to do some chasing, and often you have individuals that are there's such a need to fill that position that waiting for a reference there's a perception. And the reason why I say this is because I hear it all the time. So I'm basing this off of experience as to what I've learned from working with my clients for the last 9 years. So what I hear and what I see is people say, I don't have time for this. I need to get this job filled. I'm just going to go for it. So here's the plus, here's the minus to doing it. The plus is that when you call your references and you do that background, that thorough background check, you're getting full, complete information on the person that you are hiring. The downside is that if there is something going on, and if you do not do your due diligence, you could inadvertently find yourself in a position of negligent hiring. And what I mean by this is that if that person has a history, let's say of not domestic violence, but workplace violence, for instance, and you failed to research whether or not that person from a prior employer and get that verified information, and something happens in your workplace, you could potentially be held liable. Now, how do you get that information? Well, that's the crapshoot right there, to be totally honest with you. If the prior employer has knowledge of an individual engaging in workplace violence, it is incumbent of them to share that information when another company is performing a background check on a prior employer. Reason being is if they don't and something happens in the new workplace, they are also held liable as well, because they did not share knowledge that may have either saved the lives of several people or saved, the welfare of a particular individual. So this is not a very highly discussed topic, but it is definitely one that is out there, and it does loom. We don't hear a lot about negligent hire. You hear a lot about, harassment and work, those other things, right? This is definitely something that I think in today's work environment, or in today's environment where we are seeing an increased number of active shooters, we're also seeing an increased number of them that are suspected to have been terminated. We just had one over the past weekend, which has been unfortunate over in Texas. So this is going to start coming up. There's no doubt about it. So if you are not doing reference checks, please, I beg you, start doing them, because you may learn something very valuable that, number one, could save your business, and number two, if it's significant, it could also be a protectant of the welfare of your individuals. Now, I'm not saying everybody coming in is like that, but you know what? It only takes one. And we are now living and operating in a world that if it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So that's how you protect yourself. One way you protect yourself from negligent retention. And if an employee or a candidate is asking this question, that means that they have something that they're hiding. It may not be as high or as volatile as workplace violence, but mark my words, they're hiding something from you guys, and it's just going to be a raging pain in the butt to figure out what it is after they've come aboard and potentially to manage it. So do your due diligence, and hopefully everything will come out for the best for you guys. Now you guys can follow me and find out what is going on in my world on a couple different places. So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook at Best Practices in HR. You can also find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Brenda Neckbottle. And again, my name is spelled N-E-C-K, like the thing you want to choke, V as in Victor, A-T-A-L. And once again, you can go ahead and find more information on the bestpractices.org website. Jump on the mailing list, and you are going to get the latest and greatest of best practices right into your inbox. And I really want to, again, thank you guys for taking the time to join me today. This has been yet another fantastic episode. I'm really excited about this whole series, and we are going to continue it with the next week, and we're going to have Kim come back, and she's going to talk to us a little bit more about preparing for renewals and open enrollment, which are two pretty critical aspects of what it is that we do. So you guys have a great one, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.